Welcome back to the Positively Negative podcast,
where we talk about life, love, and the pursuit of positivity in a world that can be quite negative.
I'm Dayle.
And I'm Team Humble.
And we're glad you're here. I love that. That can stay.
Okay.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome. It's raining and it just started.
It's so funny that the rain in this country...
In this country specifically?
I've never...
Brexit rain.
I've never experienced rain that happens on the hour as precisely. It's like a train schedule. It's like somebody's up at the top being like, all right, time for the rain. And they just press a button because it's always on the hour.
Well, I think UK rain can only start at the hour because somebody's having a cup of tea at 11:55.
That's what I'm saying.
They have a hobnob and it's like, hang on a minute, rain. I've got to do this first and then you can...
I don't know, maybe because it rains all the time.
So
and
what
it
you're
just
saying
feels like it's on the hour.
Is that British rain is timely and on the hour.
As the man gets into the hobnobs.
Damn straight.
Crackle, crackle, crackle.
Damn
all right.
straight, damn straight.
Yeah.
She's moving them now because she doesn't want the crackle.
Because it's trying to drive me crazy.
It's very specific. We have to be exacting.
No, it's fine. We're
Rage.
There's no rage.
Rage.
Good morning.
That makes a good podcast.
What?
When the other person's like pissed at the other person.
Oh, so that's the move here?
I've been reading all the influencers.
Is that what they say?
Yeah, the influencers say you should have somebody who's like
the social media influencers. Oh, so one person has to be. Yeah, but that's both of us all the time.
Yeah, that's why we called it Positively Negative. Because one of us is sparking all the time.
No, but I do feel like we chameleon in and out of it. Like,
oh yeah, no doubt.
Sometimes I wind you up and sometimes you...
Yeah, well, we're not really winding each other up. It's just...
Are we though?
No.
I'm just kidding.
I think it's a brain pathways thing. I think actually at the core of it, we actually quite like each other, but I think brains...
You think?
Yeah, brains.
Oh, God.
Brains and life and, that rain set us off. Yeah, the rain set us off. Because it was like,
I like it.
I love rain.
I like it can be heard. Let me hear. Oh, it sounds beautiful.
Sounds like I love the rain down in Africa.
Sounds like we're literally in a tin can.
Yeah.
Sitting in the tin can. No, I like it. Like it. If I was listening to this podcast and I was wearing headphones, I would be so soothed.
Yeah, I guess so. If you're into that kind of thing, if you like the rains,
maybe in some have a meditation.
Maybe in some places maybe in some places where it's really, really, really hot right now, where it's like 34, 35 degrees, and people are praying for rain and being like, I wish it was cooler. I think we've got like a week's worth of cool weather, rain coming. We had like 2 extreme days of heat, and now it's like the opposite in 12 hours.
It's only extreme, like in comparison, like.
No, the planet is melting.
That's what I'm saying. In comparison, I mean, it wasn't like it was 80s and 90s degrees. It was 60, but like compared to it being in the 30s, there was some crazy swings. Like in the same day, you would wake up and everything would be frozen, and then the afternoon you'd be wearing shorts. Like, what is that?
Climate change.
Okay, cool. Glad we sorted that out.
That's what it is. There seems to be a crescendo effect right now where, I kind of don't want to be constantly caught up with. Like you said to me yesterday, human beings don't do well with like sheer amounts of information.
Yeah, our brains haven't evolved to like deal with what we have.
So now you're telling me that seasons are now nightly? You know what I mean?
No, it's true.
It feels like that.
It's good for your body.
No, it can't be.
And like I wasn't feeling well. Well, both of us had like a little bit of a flu-y
But I think that was just from being out in general public.
Yeah, but I think that, I don't know, that's always this time of year, it feels like. It's always that weird, you go out one day where you thought it was going to be cold and it was hot, or vice versa, and it's just like, your body can't adapt.
Well, the ecosystem's messed up. You've got bees and wasps coming out like, it's summer, it's like February. Oh, sorry. So they're all going to die off.
That woman told us that her pet tortoises are out of hibernation already, and they usually hibernate till like mid-March.
Yeah, they're going to have a shock to the system, aren't they?
She was trying to tell them to go back to sleep. It was the cutest thing I ever heard.
How do you tell a tortoise to go back to sleep? Quietly, I guess. Go back to sleep. There's nothing but you here.
I wonder if she tucks them in if they have little blankets.
Tortoise is the ultimate skinny po Instagram influencer, isn't it? Because all you get is lettuce and you move super slow.
Yeah.
I never want to come back as I was about to say lettuce.
I wouldn't want to be a lettuce either.
It wouldn't be cool, would it? Wouldn't last long, would it?
No.
Although, talking about lettuce, I'm really, really interested in microgreens all over again.
Yeah, I want to talk about them on the other podcast too because
All right.
Technology.
Yeah, no,
There's some really cool stuff coming out, and it's making jokers like me and you who don't know what they're doing.
I'd love to
possible for us to do it. You know?
I'd love to do that. I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to do hydroponics. I've always wanted to, mainly to start off with hydroponics because of like weed, like in my 20s. But actually now, the idea of like growing your own food quickly, real quick.
I had no idea what the turnover was on that stuff.
real
I
quick.
didn't think it was possible to grow things faster than they grow.
Right.
Like,
I got you.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like.
Yeah, but it's not making it faster. It's providing the perfect conditions.
And it's like a micro version, so there's less. The mature plant is like small. It's like
right.
You know what I mean?
So the
it's
nutrient rich, right? That's what. Yeah. So
right.
to give you a bit of background, everybody, what we're talking about is we watched a video the other day about a couple in Alberta, Canada, who are making about $10,000 a month. Don't get it twisted. These people have been in the food industry, for like 15 years. They work super hard. They're super focused, laser focused. Couple, kids.
They both have their own full-time jobs. As well. So $10,000 a month is like pocket change.
And they do 40 hours. So they do 40 hours, but 20 hours each,
right,
roughly,
40
between them. And what was cool about it is that they'd created this microgreens business in their basement, making $10,000 a month, selling to local places. She drives around, drops things off. He goes off and does business connections, stuff like that. I'm sure she does that too. But they created this perfect micro growing conditions downstairs, because not every day you see is like going to be the right conditions for it. So so when you're using these LEDs
controlled environment
to control that environment, they can like grow, cut, ding, bang. It's like a very linear process, actually.
Yeah.
Apart from if they have like some kind of infection, which I'm sure will happen at some point.
But I think things happen. Like as long as you know which ones do well and like which ones lend themselves to being microgreens. Like the mature version of the plant is a micro version, so that's why it takes it to like 2 weeks and it's like in its quote unquote mature state, whereas other vegetables would need an entire season.
The big payoff for me with something like that is it's very similar to web work, but there's a better payoff because it's linear, but there's like the whole packaging, the delivery, the client, the food tasting. It's like end to end. It's such a satisfaction thing for me.
Yeah, I would love that. And I know I get that. Like my dad's the same way. We do really well when there's like a list of things to do in the beginning of the day and a bunch of errands to run. It's like, go here, do this, talk to this guy.
Right.
When my day's laid out for me like that, and especially in an analog way, I absolutely crush it. It's like, it's really nice. And I think it would like really refresh how we feel about like screen time then. Yeah. Because when you're on the machine, like I feel like I would be really creatively charged to like storytell and make content around it, because I wouldn't be doing it for other people all day.
I know you can make all that stuff with Raspberry Pis to start with. Like there's Raspberry Pi controller software and everything for lights. So it's just like, it should be fairly reasonable to set up, cheaply reasonable to set up. What's interesting about what they've got, are you triggered by my eating?
So triggered.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I really like about what they've done is a certain veggies that you probably won't be able to get all year round.
Right.
That they can grow. And if you snag yourself like, I don't know, maybe 5 top flight restaurants, you're in.
I know.
You're in, because
they're gonna have a constant demand.
They've got a constant demand. There's an air of exclusivity of having microgreens from, if you do the website right and everything's all like polished and stuff, do all the storytelling to it, that's a solid business right there. It's a solid business,
Yeah.
Talking about food, should we get onto some of the topics that you're running the show this week? But I seem to be talking a lot. Yeah.
Okay. I had an idea. I know. So shady.
Subtle dick.
It wasn't even subtle. I was just there. Yeah. Okay. So, brain pivot time. I was thinking about. Well, I mean.
Okay, let me give you this title.
No, I was just
no, you
about
weren't
to
there.
say it.
You weren't there.
Sweet Lord. Oh.
What to do when you're waiting on the universe?
Wow, thank you. I was about to get there because I was gonna say. You freaking wind me up, dude.
Dude, wow.
Thank you. I think a lot of what we talk about comes from like real life stuff that we're going. I mean, all of what we talk about it comes from real life, and so I was thinking about like what we could talk about, and at the risk, of being repetitive, you know, we do talk about what we do online and, you know, our relationships with clients and how we navigate like managing ourselves digitally, but I think that's also difficult to do when there's no work to do and you have to spin up your own productivity.
Yeah.
And it's for me, it's a delicate balance because I can't stand when people are just like spinning their wheels and they're talking about doing business.
Yeah.
But at the same time, sometimes when like client work dries up, you have to do a little bit of that. And it's not like BS, but it's just like that downshifting to be like, okay, well, what are the creative projects that I've been meaning to do? But also, how do I keep myself fed? So, so what to do when you're waiting on the universe. And then I wrote this little thing because I was feeling mystical yesterday morning. It's the end of February and client budgets are taking about as long to thaw as the winter ground. Happy. What do you do in the meantime in between pockets and power-ups and upgrade portals that the universe puts in your path? And so, I think things are going to turn around soon. I think they're already starting to turn around client-wise, and I don't want to measure my success about how I feel about how a week went based on what clients did or if they came through or not. But at the same time, it is a big momentum factor and like,
of course it is,
in terms of what you're able to do with the funds that brings. So,
okay. So before you break into the list of things that you got here, two things I want to throw out. I feel like there's two trajectories that my mind goes through when I'm waiting on the universe, and one is what is going on a local level with me, and where the hell do I think I am on a global level.
Wow.
Right. So on a local level, I think to myself, what can I do in my local area? What can I do on myself? Like, how can I work on something that's an issue that might, you know, nudge the universe to say, oh, yeah, you've moved on a little bit since last time. I do have this weird universe karma feeling of like, if I iterate something a little bit, then it looks a little, not like shining a turd, but like refining an idea, or at least signing off on an idea if it didn't work out, and coming back to it at a later stage. So local, I kind of think, what can I do to affect my locality? And that might be local things, maybe like food, local work, relationships. And then I think global, like I kind of have two distinct areas, and I look at what's going on in the news, and like I use that as a barometer to what work potentially is going to come in, and it kind of influences my local thinking, because if I look at the globe, and like today, for instance, you know, President Trump and Kim Jong-un were meeting yesterday, and it was all like the media's like, oh yeah, they're going to come to a denuclearization. Then today it's like, nope, it's not happening. So like that sends sentiment through various news agencies and the world. Like people we're obsessed with news, even if we don't want to read the news or watch the news. That news influences people's decision making globally. Like it's like almost like a carrier wave of like, oh, this didn't work out, so these are not good times. These are not times to chill because there's indecision. And if you extrapolate that for marketplaces, to gold, to fuel, to food, to like politicians, to like terrorism, all of these different areas, all these different verticals in life have different effects on your income or your life.
See, that makes my head spin.
Well, it makes my head spin too. But at the same time, if you don't acknowledge where you think you are in the world, then the world just steamrolls over you.
But you can't. But like, I acknowledge the fact that I can't possibly like get all of that information into a subset of equations that I could even begin to predict an outcome. And so it just seems like a wash of stuff. So when you have an action based on that, aren't you just cherry picking the like something that just resonates with you and then say like, oh well, that must mean this? Because it seems like,
so what's the alternative? Ignoring it all?
I don't know, but because like, I don't know if I could make it.
Because if everybody ignores it all, then surely nothing ever happens on planet Earth. If everybody ignores the news and nobody reacts to any of it,
Right.
or has no influence on our decision making as a human being, what are we fucking doing here?
Well, but the ceiling for, I think the ceiling for what's quote unquote important news needs to be raised.
Who's defining what's important?
I'm thinking, well, there's too much. And ever since the 24-hour news cycle got invented, there's, it's true.
Pretty much was always there. It wasn't invented.
I mean on TV. Like, as soon as 24-hour news networks popped up and it was like, we need, instead of giving you your nightly news, which means we have a finite time for us to communicate what's important about what's going on in the world, we now have news that is like, Elon Musk changed his Twitter handle. What does it mean for Tesla? And what does that mean for stock prices? And like, when we're down to that macro level of news, that's the stuff that I'm always on about that our brains can't handle.
Yeah, but it's like 5,000 articles today. I don't read so many articles and like make a decision based on it. It's more of a gut instinct feeling, right?
Right.
Is it going to affect on my local level the price of my raw materials that I need to get to survive food wise?
Right.
Right? Fucking men in grey suits are fucking the planet up at an unprecedented rate.
That's true.
Right? At an unprecedented rate. So somebody has a fallout somewhere on the other side of the planet. It affects shit now.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need better AI to filter the things that actually affect.
At least it wouldn't be a crybaby, Mardy, and just do yes or no rather than like, you know, what we have now.
Because I'm like so annoyed by all of it that I do tune it out, and like that's not me being cold or being being apathetic to what's going on. It's me being like, I can't possibly give a fuck about everything that you're showing me, so I choose not to give a fuck about any of it until until the right news finds me that's like important enough that it comes through enough channels that I keep hearing about it, and then I pay attention to it.
Well, that's what's the problem then, isn't it? Globally, with the majority of people in the world, if they're constantly waiting for the content to be formatted and packaged and delivered, then while they're waiting, the shit that's going wrong is going wrong faster because nobody's dealing with it on a local level. If we're not looking at stuff like for instance Fukushima, right? I haven't read anything about Fukushima for fucking years, but I know for a fact that shit is in the ocean. It's probably travelled all around the world now because of currents. Okay, somebody's smart ass is going to say, yeah, but the what you call it current is slowing down, so probably it hasn't got as far as you think. Whatever. There's things in the ocean that are dying because at a really, 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 really low level,
right,
at the ocean floor where the selenium 232 or whatever the fuck it's called, the major component in it, is affecting the food chain.
Sure. Now,
we don't give a shit because salmon and tuna in pots in the shops still exists for now. So it influences my decision making if I want to eat tinned fish.
Agreed.
Right?
I agree.
So at some point you have to have an agency who's like, we have to make sure we have to keep testing this stuff, otherwise the stuff we're selling to people, we're killing them.
Yeah.
Effectively. So I have, going back to this thing about waiting on the universe, I don't wait on the universe. I take cues from the universe, and I am influenced by the universe, but I also send pings back. Like, what should I be doing? Where should I be at? What should I be involved with? How long should I be involved for? And for most people, that can look chaotic and kind of throw away and like, oh, you wanted to do this, now you want to do that. I'm just reacting on my emotional connection with that information. I'm not absorbing it and making a fundamental, firm decision, like, because I can't. You have to adapt and change every day. I do believe that the majority of news is a distraction economy.
Right.
I do believe it's now utilised as a weapon of, always been used as a weapon of control in terms of
course,
who wants to force a narrative. So I don't wait on the universe. What unfortunately happens is that because everybody else is distracted by this stuff, it's very difficult to break through and get people to be aware of your stuff.
Well, yeah, and I mean, there's always been enough. This is the one thing I always say: there's enough problems, and there's enough people. Meaning that not everybody has to be a social justice warrior for women's rights.
Sure.
Not everybody needs to be an animal rights advocate, but like that's what I think that's the beauty of our diversity as people is like the thing that really like hits you. There's enough problems to go around. Like, you know, we can all focus. I don't think there's anything wrong with having priorities in terms of where you put your empathy, because I think that's something that's a dangerous game to play when you try to be all things to all people.
Sure.
Or all causes.
But in the same way that seasons are obviously changing because of climate.
Sure.
Right? Weather changes overnight. Bang, 12 hours, 30-degree drop. Like, insane, crazy.
Yeah.
Big tornadoes in oceans that we haven't seen before, right? In certain hemispheres. You know, in this text you put, like, client budgets are taking as long to thaw as the winter ground. Like, I truly believe that if it affects everybody on those freelancing sites, the seasons of the seasons that we've got used to on those platforms have changed as well.
Yeah.
The seasons in the politicians, you know, people leaving politics because of things that have not been passed through, like Brexit and stuff.
Sure.
So I'm not.
I think you're getting hung up on the waiting on the universe part. Maybe that was just a clever way of articulating what I wanted to say in a short span. I don't think either of us wait around for like universal mystical handouts, because
So
I
what
sure
did you
as
mean by?
fuck have never been that lucky.
So what do you mean then? So what do you do in the meantime?
So in the meantime, I think, you know, sometimes when we say, oh, the universe or whatever, that seems like to me more of a feeling of, oh, all the things are like there's momentum, there's energy, there's creative inspiration, things are lining up in the right way that allow you to do things, and a lot of times that has to do with client work and finances coming in. But then like there's those, everything ebbs and flows. So then there's like those dips, those in-betweens where it's like, it's almost like the tide goes out and you have that like recession of, okay, there's really not, I'm not getting much to go off of in terms of outward projects. So like what do I need to spin up inside of me to keep that momentum going?
It seems like you seems like you have like opposite views on it, because a minute ago you were saying like I wait until it's kind of packaged and curated and it comes to me, or at least there's like 20 people in my Twitter stream are talking about it, therefore I then look at it, it's relevant. And now you're kind of saying, well, you know, I need to know how to spin something up. It's almost like you become aware. It's almost like you become aware that when the energy levels are not there, or if the right pointers are not there, then you start to activate, and my voice starts to disappear.
No. I think in terms of news, that was exclusively to news.
No, but it's a similar thing, right? Like,
okay.
Even if it's not news, it could be work coming in, client work coming in. It could be.
I'm just very protective of what I'm very protective of what I consume media wise. I've always been, maybe it's because I was raised that way. I was raised in kind of like this like small Christian community that maybe I felt like not sheltered, but there was just things that it was like this, like, no, that's the world, and this is like, you get to choose what you participate in and what you allow in to your mind, into your like eyes. Like we watched that super violent movie yesterday. I believe that has an effect on me, my spirit, my soul, everything, like the things that I take in. So I'm just very guarded about that. I can't let like wave after wave of negative news just wash over me. It would absolutely break me.
It's interesting that you see it as waves. So you just see it as bad news, and therefore that's it.
It never stops, right?
Do you ever? Of course not.
That was kind of like.
But inside of that negative news, what I try and see is like, you know, is there going to be a positive? Is this going to have a knock-on effect? I mean, literally, people are sitting behind training desks, like trading on this shit, right?
You know what I feel like? I feel like at the end of a news article, there's like an ask, or maybe it's an ask of myself, where I'm like, great, what am I supposed to do? Somebody tell me.
Right.
And then when I don't have that, then I'd feel like upset, frustrated, worried, concerned. And I don't feel like you get to that level. You just see the data as it is, and you're like,
do.
okay, so then the price of Parmesan might go up this week.
Right.
Like for me, at the end of a news, like a particularly disturbing news article, which most of them are, I'm like, there's no instructions at the bottom,
don't get me
so I don't know what to do, how to mobilize myself.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. It makes me sad. It makes me frustrated. It makes me annoyed. It makes me like. I think this is why I have to.
I don't know where to put those emotions though afterward.
Sure, and I think we all carry them. This is the thing, is I think they're still there. I think they're stored away, and I think in part they feed into your thought processes. You know, how you judge people, how you judge products and brands, and like interactions and relationships. Oh well, you did this once, and so you're probably going to do it again. You know. Do you know what I mean? It has all those influential elements that we just hold deep in us, and just we don't process them, or at least we don't make out that we process them.
I think
so. That's why I have the local and the world view, local view and world view, because the local view is things that I might be able to change.
Yeah.
The world view is things that never in a million lifetimes will I be able to change it.
Right.
But by living a local life and doing something different in my locality, with the way that we have connectivity now, those things can change. I read a tweet yesterday of a Nigerian boy, incredible artist, who's doing all these sketches and stuff. And I can't remember the comedian now, but he sent a tweet and said, you know, I did this, I've spent loads of time on it. And the comedian got back to him and said, amazing, like, tell me how to contact you. I need 3 pictures doing for my actor friends. Like, I'll pay you a good wage for this. Like, this was just like a Nigerian kid who's got a phone, you know, would never get to meet this actor in America, because probably wouldn't even be able to get out of his country.
Right.
Because he lives in Nigeria, right? For whatever reason. Wouldn't be able to passport, plane flight, whatever.
Right.
And so I truly believe that, you know, somebody like that has been influenced by the comedy of this person. Forget that it's an actor, celebrity, person got money, just a human being with a skill, with a talent as an actor, influenced this kid in Nigeria to the point that the kid with a talent drew it, drew the picture. So I truly believe that it takes everybody to take part. And I think the biggest issue that we have in life is that most of the time we're distracted.
Yeah, but don't you see the news as part of that distraction?
Absolutely. But when you say cherry pick, all I'm looking for is my sentiment relationship with it every day. I know shit is going to be shit, but it's almost like you have to remember. Like, I knew a lot of this stuff was going. I'd made decisions on a lot of this stuff 20 years ago, and now 20 years later, all the stuff that I thought would happen has happened. Right, and I know there's a whole generation of people like that. Oh, I knew it's going to be like this. You know, and at that point, you kind of detach yourself from those.
Do you get like a gratification from seeing the reinforcement on the news of the "I told you so" moment? Is that like what it is?
No, not at all. It's more of affirmation that my thought processes, my brain, the rationale that I ran through was in some way validated. But it's not an ego.
No.
Because there's nothing to gain.
More like a true north, like a recalibration.
Yeah.
Like being like, okay, well,
I guess
then
so.
I guess it is tough when it starts off based on a gut feeling. So then to see that come back at you in the form of like written word that somebody else wrote, that's like there's a consensus that this happened and this is true. Then I can see how that can feel comforting in a way. Like there can be a level of comfort there.
No, it's not even about comfort, because like you said earlier on, I don't react to those things anymore. I feel like it's almost like a glass. I think I've filled up and there's no more room for me to be emotional about any of that stuff. I just feel like if I had the capacity to be emotional, I'd be out there in the field volunteering, doing something about it, because I would apply that emotion into trying to flip it into something that would give me some kind of life affirming, you know, and so I've got to the point where it's like, what can I deal with on a local level, which is the opposite of that, maybe. You know, how can I influence people to, instead of, you know, getting on board with middlemen in businesses that are just creaming off the top but making out that, you know, they're doing you a service. Like, how can I just enable the person to be like, no, you can do this. You can do it yourself. You can set up your own business. You can do it ethically from the core, storytelling. That's what these tools are for.
Yeah.
Don't just like give up apathetically and be like, oh, I'll let them take care of it because we trust them.
Yeah, it's a hard thing being like an empath, because it can come off as apathy of not wanting to participate or feeling burnt out on participation. But I do fully agree on like what we do locally, or the way we approach it, being like, okay, well then what the heck can I do, like within the, you know, group of people that I know, or the, you know, the realms in which I have control, what I buy, you know, what I advise to my clients to do. Like, you know, in terms of sustainability, I'm not going to advise my clients to go down a road with, you know, a random startup that I know is going to be gone in 6 months. Just like applying that I don't know, there's something empowering about taking what you see missing in the world globally and then applying it, like you said, locally.
Yeah. Everything's in flux, right? Everything's in flux more than it ever has been, or at least I feel like it's that way. Maybe there's more comms channels to be able to like see what has been going on for years. I mean, we've known about climate change and the issues for like 40, 50 years, regardless on what side of the fence you sit on that. Like, I don't know who the people are like wanting to be on the other side of that argument of like, I told you so. It's not something you can gamble with, I don't think. Like, regardless if you think it's man-made or not, anything we can do to mitigate facts, you know, plastic is this, it's been in the ocean, it does this, it biodegrades, it affects the food chain. That's facts.
Right. Or we had this number of this many animals,
right,
and now we have this number. That's like, you can't
argue. I mean, radically changed.
Right.
Radically changed.
Right.
So like when you, and so there's my point. My point is somewhere in between all of that is that we're looking at, you know, we are in an extinction level event. We are in the middle of it.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm quite aware of that, and so it's a time-based thing really now. Right. It's a time-based thing because, you know, every species has its time, and so I've always been about optimization. I think computers have done that to me from being a computer operator working for a council, and constantly questioning why this 70-year-old man every week comes and cleans out the dust on our big server equipment, and, you know, nobody telling me why we can't replace it. Like, why can't we replace this machine? Why are we keeping it on life support? I don't know. It's a big one. I mean, I kind of don't. I wait on indicators and then adapt to that. So like the recent, you know, when you came over this time, I was like, I want to change the food situation up. I want to look at breads, rice, all that stuff. I mean, I know you had massive input on that. And that feels, I mean, that gives that, I can't tell you where the grains are from, and I don't know if the grains are going to keep coming. I don't know how much stocks they've got on it. You know, like, so in some ways I'm still abstracting, because I'm not making it from raw materials myself.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have to choose what, like, you can't get so, maybe this is what I need to do in terms of like news too, but you can't get so overwhelmed by the granularity of it that you don't participate at all.
Right.
Like, you have to do what you can, just what you can do. Whatever level that is better than where you are. And then once that becomes...
But be realistic about that.
Right, that's what I mean. Like, you know, when I talk about like meal prep or any of it, it's like, you know, we watch those videos from that girl in China, and she's like, literally walks out in the morning, grabs the grain from the field, and then has an ox turn this huge stone mill. Like, that's not a level that you and I can get to in any reasonable way, in any reality anytime soon.
I don't believe that.
But that doesn't... No, I'm saying anytime soon, like within the next 6 months. Do you think we're going to have access to an ox?
I mean, if you're testing me, I mean, if you, you know, if you...
But just because you can't do it to that level doesn't mean you can't participate. Like, you can't go as far as you can go at that moment. And then when other doors open up, then you can go further.
She's a perfect example of applying what she knows on a local level.
Yeah. With
her farm and her family. And then she's jumping on the train and going into the city and selling her chilies and her, you know, sweet cakes and all that sort of stuff. She's the ultimate entrepreneur in a way. I don't know her backstory, but I would say that she was probably into media or social or a chef, and, you know, interface, has come into contact with those people. What's so beautiful about her content is it's simple. Yeah. Crossfades, great macro shots.
None of it's in English, but anybody who speaks any language can...
It's accessible.
Yeah, can kind of just watch. She's almost like the Bob Ross of cooking. Like,
right.
She just... We've talked about her enough times. I'm sure there's a link out there, but like...
But all those raw elements that she brings to that video, it's kind of... She's selling an idea of a life that is, you know, she can transport you into her life.
Right.
And also like, oh, I would love a life with like this. She, you know, you're correlating stuff that you would like in your life.
Right.
But really, she's just describing stuff that she does on a local level.
Right.
She's just managed to get to that point in her life where she's got those things.
Well, yeah, and I think it's another level to do it and then turn around and communicate it. Like, that's two totally different.
I don't think. I think she's got somebody else doing that.
Yeah, for sure.
She
but
has
I'm
a
just
filmmaker
saying,
doing that.
Like, there's people. That's the big difference. That's like that's the missing link, because there's people who have been making things from scratch for, you know, generations. But it's just that extra step of the storytelling. Not to say that that's a small step, but it's that extra step of like storytelling it, putting it on YouTube, putting it in a place where you know eyeballs are going to see it.
Yeah.
But you know, just like to go kind of back to a more practical of when things are just slow.
Yeah.
Like slow money wise, slow client wise.
Yeah.
Something that we've been doing, like you just mentioned, is making breads from scratch, making like little flatbreads and things, which not only serves the need of us just needing to eat, and it serves the need of us not spending very much money, but it's also like I really enjoy it. Like,
yeah, I do.
I enjoy the tactile, like kneading the bread. I enjoy waking up in the morning early with you and like not being on the screen right away, doing something analog. That's why I know I would love like the food truck situation so much.
Yeah.
And that's something that kind of came out of like necessity, just because it was like, all right, let's get some food in us that doesn't cost very much. But yeah, you know, it kind of, there are other like hidden bonuses, hidden like riches in there. We've been buying bulk grains, rice, pasta.
Just quickly, the bread thing.
Yeah.
There's additional things to gain from it. One is we stopped buying bread.
Yeah.
Cheap bread that was going to go off, and we no longer had the situation of like, how many people go and buy like a cheap 30-40p bag of bread that's going to last a couple of days and then end up chucking the last third away anyway.
Right.
We don't do that at all now. So there's no waste now.
Yeah, that's true. We do only make what we eat, and we eat what
there's
we
literally
make.
no waste.
And no packaging. Because
no packaging,
think about
no
every
waste.
time you buy like a bag, or you know, any discount bread or whatever, it's either gonna it probably comes in plastic, right? Some type of cellophane or wrap, so it's coming down in the garbage.
But you see, with the food truck thing, here's how like news it affects me and influences me. Is like, you know, it takes bravery to like go the opposite way, like to be a wolf rather than a sheep culture, right? If I know we could do the landing page, the graphics, the styling, the food, the van, everything. I mean, we're brave enough to like take the money, make it happen, run after it, chase after it. The problem is I know that the state of the way the world is right now. Doing something like that, I already know that half of my time or 70% of my time would be dealing with the general public. It wouldn't be the product. That's why so what you pick is very important in this world, because of the way the world is. People are angry because they've lost their job. AI is taking their job. They're not getting the right kind of money. They're finding out that their water, like in Flint, has lead in it, and it's affected their children. You know, like there's all this anger and angst in people, and you know, certain news networks and certain facets of society are feeding on that.
Yeah.
And they enjoy that. They enjoy the decay.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to adapt. You have to adapt, and you have to, like, you know, not necessarily work around it, but you have to kind of like influence it in different ways.
Right. And that's an evolutionary thing. Like, I should have mentioned that earlier, but they've like, people who have looked into it really believe that it's an evolutionary asset that we have as human beings, that we pay attention to negative news because our brains are wired to pay attention to things that could hurt us or harm us.
Right.
So that's why, like, people are like, oh, well, why isn't there any positivity on the news? Because it wouldn't get watched. Because our brains are wired to be like,
it's always the last piece.
Bell.
It's always the last piece. It's always the fluff piece.
Right. Because it's like, okay, well,
Today, a small child walked into such with a puppy.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's like that's my gripe with the 24-hour news network, is if we have to constantly be ticking off this evolutionary you're in danger thing in people's minds, which I do believe we are, but I do believe that that's engineered by people, obviously for ratings and things like that, playing on the evolutionary part of your brain that's like, oh, I need to pay attention to this because it affects my well-being, my life, which I agree that it does. Obviously climate change obviously crazy, crazy people in government doing crazy, crazy things with access to large bombs. That's wild. But I also believe that there's somebody who's pressing the button on. I don't like the thought of somebody having control over that spike in my brain anxiety in order for me to pay attention to them so that they can hit ratings numbers and sell more Coca-Cola.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, what?
Yeah. Okay. So how to stay fed.
Wow, it's just gonna glaze over it. Okay, fine. So yeah.
I don't know where you were going with that last bit. I mean, like, you seem to be, there was just all this nuclear energy, button pressing, melatonin, what did you say? Melatonin, brain stuff. Like, I don't know why it cascaded like that. It's like walking into a Belgium disco as a British 16-year-old and being like, "You like techno, yes?" And it's like, what?
Right. Okay. So creative projects. When do you feel like you get the?
I'm creative all the time.
Wow.
No, seriously.
So prolific. I know. We both are.
Creative, but it doesn't mean if it's good, anything of it comes out is good. But no, I'm creative all the time.
But yeah, but do you feel like when do you feel like you get those triggers to be like, okay, like I'm with my whole thing with this is my interest in what makes certain people shift gears. Mm-hmm. Like to wake up in the morning and be like, okay, I'm working on this because I didn't hear back from this person and this happened this way, and so
sometimes it's just a gut instinct.
Right.
Sometimes it's gut instinct, and the way that you've always done things, it's very hard to shake those things, because those are a bit like you early on in this, like the end of February. I normally expect at the end of February, especially maybe today and tomorrow, people are getting paid from your normal Joe jobs, and they'll have a little bit spare this month. So, and weirdly, some of the people that I've started to see are also people who have left jobs, and they're kind of locked into this illusion that they, by writing a blog post about how they've taken ownership of their life and they're going to set up a business, that they're using their savings or the money that they've managed to accrue for the last 3, 6, 12 months to now start their online business. I'm seeing a lot of people being let go by companies, right? If you look at anything like Cake Valerie and places like that, those things have a big impact. Like, you walk through the town centre nearby, and that middle area is now devoid of people. There is no social group. There's no social space now. That's ripped the soul out of that space.
Right.
And it won't take long before people won't go there anymore, because they're not seeing people enjoying themselves. That will have a knock-on effect. It just rolls out. Creative projects. Weather really affects me. Really affects my mood to want to be super creative.
Yeah.
There is things that I see around the world, reminders of projects and hobbies and things that I'm like, I want to do that in my life. I want to play with that. I want to have a tinker with that. Not always from a money perspective. Sometimes the acquisition of more skills strengthens the offering of other things.
Yeah. I have that written here because I think that's something I appreciate about both of us, is that we're always
I'm compelled,
willing to learn a new skill. I'm
compelled by access to these things. That was one of the things that I think has fundamentally changed, and I'm thankful for it from being a teenager, is access. My access as a teenager was dependent on my dad not being drunk and giving me pocket money so I can get on a bus to go and buy a new game. Now I can just get the game.
Yeah.
I can click a button, earn some crypto, turn that crypto into something else, and buy the thing.
Right.
So access has been incredible to my life, and so because of that, I have it somewhere in my instinctual nature of being like, but you can now. So I'm carrying that, and like some people carry anger and angst and sit in a pub and drink at 9 o'clock in the morning and be like, the world's fucked, and I'm going to keep doing this every single day. We see him on the bus all the time, getting on at the same time, every week, every day, drunk. That person is not going to add anything to the equation apart from all they're going to add to is another +1 to the consumption side, right? So I'm always trying to add +2 to the creativity side.
Yeah, it's like the push and the pull.
The ultimate balance, right?
It's the whole reason why your internet provider will give you more bandwidth to download than to push.
But also, right? what I will say is that things in the technology space are maturing as well. So access to certain tools, certain provisions. I've always wanted to run a pirate radio station ever since I was like 17, 18.
Yeah.
Now I don't want to run a pirate radio station now, but I want to run something similar to that to do live streaming with the
Right.
streamcasting stuff. And I couldn't do that before because you needed hosting, you needed tools, and there was just so much more work to keep the damn thing up rather than the creative to work on it.
Right. Even something as simple as like the t-shirt site. Like I told you, you know, growing up, like I tried to make a t-shirt business a million times. It always came back to the fact that I didn't have space to store t-shirts physically in a garage, and I didn't have enough money to buy and figure out how many people would need an extra large and in what color. And now we have like drop shipping and things like Printful that they'll just make a one-off for whoever orders it,
it's not always obvious, but some majority of the time what I'm trying to do is try to be where I think people are going to be.
Yeah.
Right? That's the whole like Gary and everything thing, is he's positioning, he's looking at the sentiment of what's going on TikTok and Snap, you know, all these different other platforms, and trying to correlate of like, well, what's the end game here? Where are people going to go? And then he's building offerings so that when they get there, Gary's like, I've already got it.
Yeah.
So like, do you want it? And then people then back the horse that is not just winning, but is consistently winning.
Yeah.
Right? So I try and work on stuff that, one, is matured and works, and two, like I have that thing inside of me that gets me excited about it. You know, I see people struggling on Upwork constantly saying the same thing, like, we need somebody to do our Instagram overlays and blah, and I'm like, we have software now that can do that, and in a 6 months time an AI is going to do it. So I know I've got a window of opportunity to make a little bit of scratch from having to play with something. But also now, if I want to do a themed thing instead of just scattergun putting tweets on Twitter about #Steam, I might as well just do a theme that like has all that on it.
Sure.
I'm still going to put #Steam on it, but then it's just taking it up another notch influences other people to take it up another notch.
Just iterating, you know, like trying to, you know, like even in the analog version of that, of making breads, it's like we make them, and then as we're making them, inevitably we're always like, you know what we could do with this, or you know what we could put in this, you know this would be really good with, like I feel like we have that we have that same thing with the projects we work on, and I think we do. So maybe
it's reinforcement. Maybe the core objective on all of this is reinforcement of who we are, what we're doing, where we are in the world, where we are on a local level.
Yeah.
Right? And so maybe the frustration is I'm not where I want to be on a local level, and I don't understand why on a global level, like, people are not seeing that. Like, why are people not subscribing to it? And people have different agendas, right? People have different...
Sure.
People are very, very calculating about who they decide to interface with and why.
Sure.
You know, based on education, class structure, like money. Are you a yes man? Are you just going to like accept the de facto message and just go along sheep culture and just keep on, you know, marching off the edge of the cliff? Or are you going to fight like a Spartan with 300 of you?
Yeah, I mean...
You have to decide which side of the fence you're on.
But I think there are people who are wired differently than us who can do the 9 to 5. So. Yeah, right. Who can do the 9 to 5 where it's not soul crushing for them.
I've done the 9 to 5. You have.
Yeah.
Why did you stop doing it?
Well, because it was the worst.
Yeah.
For me though.
Yeah.
And I think that I just always want to make the distinction that if somebody has a 9 to 5 and they're happy in it, doesn't mean that they're sheep culture necessarily. It means that they're wired in a way that they can tolerate that, and who knows what they're doing on their local level outside of that 9 to 5 when they leave work.
Okay.
You're nodding your head like you're full of shit, Dale.
No, I'm not saying you're full of shit. It's just I would say that most people who go into those things know what they're going in for. They're going in for stability.
Right.
They're going in for a monthly paycheck or a weekly paycheck. And they truly know that is the modicum of their life, right? And the problem is, what grates you is the linearity, I can't say the word, but the linear nature of it, the 9 to 5, getting up, bang, 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 every single day, year after year after year. You know, we need people like that in society.
People find comfort in that?
Sure, but my fundamental issue with that expression of life is that if you're not reading the news, if you're not taking it part on a global view, you won't see that everything that you thought was safe will be replaced with AI.
That's true. I see
right?
what you mean from that perspective.
So,
for sure.
so my point with it is you're buying a short-term bubble dream of a kind of an illusion of what your life you think should be.
Right.
And you know, people get career minded and they want to be. You know, my daughter wants to be a fireman. She wants to be like a forensic scientist. She want to be. You know, I'm going to empower that all day long, but she'll probably end up having to wear 10 different hats because those jobs will change, and she'll probably end up being more frustrated about the forensic scientist lab not getting funding, or you know, politics, office politics, rather than the actual job.
Sure.
The education that you end up like getting ends up not being utilized, which could end up having, we could have like, people could have cures for all kinds of things that just haven't matured enough yet because of everything's and everything has a knock-on effect.
Yeah.
Everything. You know, the president of America shuts down the government, and you know, we can no longer update the GPS information for the North Pole because it's moved. And then so other scientific projects are waiting on that data.
Right.
So everything has a cascade effect.
Yeah.
So you have to decide, are you going to be part of the global cascade effect, or are you going to like influence something on a local level and talk about it? And then this is my own personal choice, by the way. This is not everybody's. So going back to 9 to 5, look, if you're comfortable with it, if you're comfortable with that income, if you know the trajectory of that company, that business, that work, and you know you've got 2 years, 3 years, there's no job for life anymore. Like I need to put that out there. If you're in a job and you're lucky to have been in that job for 7 or 8 years, please have a meerkat moment and stick your head up, because things are rapidly changing globally.
For sure.
So you know, like, if I could have a 9 to 5 job where I knew I was being absolutely 100% productive for 8 hours and it was having an effect on a local level, I'd go and do one today.
Yeah, but we're not 100% effective even in our day-to-day and the non.
All right, if you want to be specific about that, all right, what I mean? Yeah. All right, if you want to be specific about the percentage, you're absolutely right. Nobody's 100%.
Right.
What I mean is, I don't
want
want
like
it.
It's a waste.
I don't want to be a 20% worker and an 80%, you know, politician.
No, I understand. I understand what you mean.
I mean, like, who needs that?
Right.
I mean, like, how is that serving you as a person?
Right.
If you're coming out of work at 5 o'clock and sitting at your car and going, and then going to the nearest drive-through and buying a fucking Big Mac and chips because you're going to treat yourself because the rest of your fucking day was bullshit.
Well, because I think there's two things here. There's the thing that gets done and the way that the thing gets done, and those are equally important to us, and they're not for a lot of people.
You got it right there. That line. Read it out.
I will.
You got it right there.
I will get... So Abraham Lincoln, we'll just wrap up with this because I'm sure we're getting close on time, right?
This one.
They're both Abraham Lincoln.
Wow.
I went through a little bit of a phase where I was like, I had this like Abraham Lincoln obsession. I was probably about like 19 or 20. There's a quote that he says, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." That's not like the freelancer quote of the decade. I don't know what is.
Well, it's how startups and money works these days. Like, the investors are not investing in the product at all. They're investing in the team, right?
Right.
The product, maybe we can flip it. I mean, most of the time these things happen behind closed doors anyway. Somebody gets a nice bottle of whiskey. They go to a friend who's a billionaire and they're like, "Hey, we've got this product. Like, you can flip it and you can make 400 million and it's worth 200 million. Like, yeah, let's do it. It's signed, bang, done." This, for me, is how the world should work, or works currently. Is, you know, 4 hours sharpening the axe. It might be 2 years in a startup with 3 million runway money. Build a very efficient team, 5 or 6 people. Write the best thing that you can write. Be excited about it. Put it out. Let it solve a problem. Let it have real world value that helps people save their time. Those 9 to 5ers, for instance. If they can like send a message or a video message to their serviceman on the other side of the planet, that has a real world value. That has an amount of money that somebody
Not
somewhere
speculative value,
right,
based on
too much
hype and
too much speculation.
Right.
We're in this speculation. We're in so many different speculation, distraction, attention economist,
because
right?
the quote isn't "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 taking Instagram photos of it."
Right. Right. But it's still an axe.
And that's that's what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And then obviously, years later, I think that he probably had that quote in his mind or had that thought, and he distilled it into "I will prepare, and someday my chance will come." And so I think the whole thing I was really trying to get at with this topic was, what do you do in the downtimes for preparation? Keeping yourself sharp, keeping yourself, like you talked a lot about, keeping yourself informed is a big part to you about how you feel sharp and on top of things and prepared to deal with the world. Keeping on top of your physical space, keeping on top of your health. I try to make sure I can do yoga, that my body and my mind are strong. And when you have like those downtimes, I think it's a really good invitation to look around and say, like, what can I improve on when you're not doing like those like sprints toward the finish line.
When you have a moment of doubt, that's the moment you should be doing exercise of some sort, mental, physical.
Really?
When for me personally, whenever I have a doubt about something, where it's like I question my motives or my ability or my strengths that I know I have, whenever I doubt those, that's the time for me to get up and go for a walk, or that's the time for me to like reflect on why I feel that way.
It gets you out of your head and into your body.
Yeah, and sometimes that might make me be creative to make something to be like, no, you still got it.
Yeah.
Just people don't need it.
Right.
You need it on a local level. People don't need
make it. Maybe
people don't need it on a global level.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it has any less worth.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah.
That's what I find anyway.
No, I agree.
All right, we've got to wrap up because Dale's playing with the hair and she's looking at me glazed over, and I've run out of coffee, and it's 56 minutes we've been recording.
I'm happy with it. I'm always happy at the end of our podcast. I love doing them, and hopefully we can maybe do another one today. We'll see how the universe allows us to.
We'll give it a shot.
But thanks for listening, and we appreciate you. We still don't have ads.
Yeah, no, I think the thing with the ads is that they've changed the team. Again, this situation is that they've had their 400 million now, and all the team has probably left and taken their shares and stuff. And so we now have Vincent, who's looking after our account, and Vincent has decided that authoritatively, because he wasn't the one who did the virtual handshake of like, oh, one of you is an American, so you can have access to the payment thing. I think it's just in cryo status, but I have no doubt in my mind that now they've had the extra money, that will speed up the proliferation of payments in different countries, and I'm sure the UK will be on that one. I'm actually not too bothered about it now. I mean, I was at first because it was like, is this a bug? I want the bug fixing. I want to fix the bug. But now I've got to the point where it's like, again, news affects my decision on that. It's like, oh, you've had your money, okay, there's going to be a transition period, the team's going to get replaced, it's going to have sales teams come in and be like, you have a product, so let's take it. I can totally see how that goes down. People are going to walk into a boardroom and be like, you've done such a great job, we'll take it from here, and they'll just take it from Coca-Cola to a global product that's even found in Jamaica somewhere, with the same brand. That's what happens, is these, as soon as there's something of a quantifiable size
Whoa.
Forgot to breathe. Spotify move in and we're like, yep, we can flip that.
Yeah.
And we've got the marketplace and distribution to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I agree.
See you later, everybody.
And I agree. Bye.
You can support the show by heading to anchor.fm/positive and clicking the support this podcast button, or by checking out any of this week's sponsors.
Subscribe to Positively Negative wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can hang out with us on Discord by visiting smarturl.it/talkback.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Yay! Bye!